tell us what exactly is behavioral wellness and why it should be important to us?
Sure. So behavioral wellness is just like any other part of our health, right? It is how your mental health affects the wellness of your life. And so often when it comes to mental health and behavioral health, we treat it like it's a side note, like it's something different than the value of our health, which affects everything. If our behavioral health isn't optimized, we don't show up in the world as our best self. It's that simple, and it needs to really be checked just like anything else, and not overlooked. And if we need help in that area, that we get it, and we're not embarrassed over it. We don't think it's like some stigmatized less than. It's just like any other part of our health.
So, what do you think then is some of the obstacles that people face in making sure that the behavior health is top of mind?
Great question, Terrain. One is the word I just used, stigma. They think that it makes them somehow less than and they should be embarrassed by, which is nothing further from the truth. And then beyond that, is there's so many people within behavioral health still working with patients or working with clients like it's 1950 and we don't have any diagnostic resources. When you look at the organ of our brain, it's the place where we use the least amount of diagnostics. Somebody would never go to a cardiologist with a heart problem and they leave without some kind of diagnostic follow-up so we can zero in on what's happening with that individual. So when it comes to behavioral health, one of the hurdles is let's actually talk to somebody who's going to use real information, diagnostic information, objective information to find out what's happening with you. The treatment for so many people within behavioral health is let's try this, let's try that, let's try and see if it works. We're throwing a dart, we're hoping we land someplace close and we can help that person while that person continues to have problems during that whole time period. You think about, and I'm not anti-medication whatsoever, but you think about how it's used in this space, and there's no other place within our health. Again, if we used a cardiac example, where we would say, let's try this, not working, let's double it, let's half it, let's try this other one, without saying, wait, time out. How come we're not getting to the root of the problem and then having a direct correlation with a treatment plan?
Could the identifying the root cause
Right.
be scary for some people to come face to face with?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what happens is I can tell you when we do labs, which actually give us real objective information as to what areas of this person's health we need to optimize. So we look at what we call biomarkers, neurotransmitters, for example, things like serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. Then we go beyond that and take a deeper dive to look at what would be genetic biomarkers for that individual. So when we look at those things, what might seem scary actually does just the opposite in the end. When I'm going over a patient's results, I can't tell you, Terrain, how many times there are tears. They're tears of joy because this person says, that's exactly how I felt my entire life, and no one's ever identified it. You are saying exactly how I've always felt. For the first time, they actually feel validated to, yeah, this is how I'm showing up in the world because this is what's going on with me. And you know what? It has nothing to do with my fault. It's my fault. No, this is what's happening. Again, I'll use an analogy with another part of health. If someone was a diabetic, we wouldn't say, why are you behaving that way? We'd say, whoa, 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 what's going on? We need to get you to the doctor. We need to figure this out. We need to make sure your insulin is correct. The dosing is correct. We would never say, stop acting that way. Yet somehow, when it comes to someone's behavioral health, it's okay to put labels and blames and say, just stop it. Well, don't you think that person realizes that their life is a lot harder? They're not trying to be this way. When we get to the root cause of what's creating you to think this way, therefore act this way, it's a game changer. And then beyond that, feeling, wow, you know what? I've always felt this way. You have validated everything I've ever felt like. Now we're saying we have real information. We have your blueprint of what we need to do to optimize and not just say, well, this is the way it is, and kind of, almost say, yeah, this is what we've got to work with for the rest of our lives. No, just the opposite. Now we have an actual game plan to make changes.
And that's the part I think is difficult for a lot of people to maybe address, right? Like it's not everyone else's fault. It's not my fault, but I can do something about it, right? And I look
Yes.
at like my own life and sometimes I look back and I'm just like, man, if only I had this in my life, or if only I was this, if only I had that. And then as I got older, it was like I've always had the power, but I would give away that power to things, right? Well, if I was richer, I
Yep.
would be happier. If I had both parents in my life, if I maybe was 6'5" and
Right.
you like
Right.
you begin
Right.
to build yourself into all these exaggerated versions of yourself, right? It's like
Right.
I don't know if you have it in the States here, but we have this thing called like build a bear where you can build a
Yeah.
toy bear exactly right,
Yeah.
exactly how you want it to be, right? You become that person.
Right.
And I wonder then, is that building yourself in different ways, is that a form of protection so people don't have to address what is going on in their life?
I would say absolutely. It kind of gives you the get out of jail card, that Monopoly game of, here's my card. It's because of this. This is how I'm going to be. So I can't help this. And this is just me. Yeah. It gives somebody that this is me. This is what I have to deal with. This is my hardship, and carry that with them. To me, the most beautiful part of what we do, Terrain, is that it gives the power back to the individual and knowing this is me, right? This is 8 billion people in the world, 8 billion different sets of DNA. This is how I show up. Now we've got actual information from biomarkers, from real lab work to be able to say, we can optimize this, this, and this. You're going to show up differently. That is very empowering. For people that say, yeah, but, it's like you almost want to make sure you've got that excuse, you've got that get out of jail card where nothing has to change so you can keep on acting that way and your life can continue to be the same exact way and you're not responsible. We can change all that. It is the seat of power to say, here's what we can do, optimize it, let's get on with it. It changes people's lives.
So, may I ask you then, when it comes to working through these behavioral issues and the way it shows up in different people's lives, right? Like we just talked about the defensive side.
Right.
If you're in, if you're someone who's looking to pursue a relationship now, let's say outside of friendship, let's say it's a romantic and you're seeking marriage,
Sure.
how do these things then impact your relationships if you're trying to figure out the cause and you realize, okay, it may not be me, but I now have the power to change it?
Oh, I mean, beautiful question because that literally, I mean, if that was my partner and they were struggling with some stuff, I'm like, let's take a look at this because it's going to make you a better person for you. You're going to show up in the world better. You're going to everything in your life is going to improve as a result. It's going to make your relationship better. Almost from a selfish point of me, I'd be like, let's do this, right? I'd want you to do it. It's it's going to make everything in your life, really, I use the word optimized. And that's relationship stuff. I can't tell you the amount of times that a spouse or a partner comes and says, they want to be in there going over the results. And then they're like, yeah, let's do this. All of a sudden, it's let's do this because you're a team now. You've identified this isn't me trying to look for a fight with you or trying to have these negative behaviors that just continue to make our relationship struggle in this area. This is now we've identified it. I'm here to be supportive of you. Let's do this.
I dated a girl, and I'm going to share this story with you, Dr. Evelyn, because I like you and you're kind. And she would say, like, anytime she, like, when something went wrong and she felt that she was at fault, she would say, well, that's just the way I am
Hmm.
because I grew up in this part of the world and
Yes,
all these things, right? So I look back now and I don't talk to her as often because we don't have that type of relationship, but every once in a while, I see some of the things that she posts. And it's the same thing. And this was maybe like 15 years ago. It's the same thing, right? She
yeah,
blames external factors to the point where when she's face to face with the ability to change, she won't even attempt it. She'll be like, well, this
correct. Yep,
caused this, right? How
yep,
do we, like, you're sharing fantastic news and we're having a beautiful conversation. How do you get people who are so resistant to identifying their behavioral issues that
sure.
as the sheer mention of it, they blame it or they put the reason for it onto other people instead of looking within?
Right, right. I mean, that allows people to never have to grow, to never have to change because they're doubling down on this is my story and this is why I am the way I am. And from a place of love, I'm saying, but you don't have to stay there. None of us are perfect in every single way. And if we can identify places where we can help what we've got and optimize what we've got, that allows us to change. When you kind of double down and stay on it, this is just me. This is the way I am because of X, Y, Z in my background. Everybody's got that. Everybody's got a story. Our stories have different nuances to them, but everybody's got a story. If you want to really start with love yourself enough, make your life easier, make your life better. Then you become the better version of yourself. You're going to attract better people in your life instead of staying in that this is me, this is just me, and the story never changes. Your story can change for the better.
I came up with this saying when it comes to those who are always a victim and they don't want to do anything about it, right? Like victimhood,
Right.
right? You take the word victim, you take the word, it's like they put on a hood,
Ah, very
right?
good. Very
You
good.
can't
Yes.
see who they
Yes.
really are, and
Yes.
it blocks the way they see reality, right? Just like
Yep.
a regular hood,
Yep.
right? It distracts
Yep.
your peripheral vision.
Yep.
So now when I think of that analogy and I share that with people, it's like at some point, do you just want to take off the hood and say, okay, how can life be? Or better question that I like to ask people, don't you want to be happier? Or what does it look like? What does happiness look like? What does being peace? Because if I were to think of, and you may be the same way, Evelyn, if we were to look at, if we were to think about every wrong that was done to us and
Oh,
just live there, life would be so much more different than we have now. But I'm at peace. I've done some bad things. Bad things have been done to me. But you know
right.
what? Over the last number of years, once I came to terms with it,
Yes.
the bad things that started happening to me, less and less and less. The bad things that I
Exactly.
did, they decrease, right?
Yeah.
How can we get people to see the end result where it's like you don't have to continue this way? We can find a better solution. It may be scary in the beginning, but trust me, it'll lead you to a better path.
Right. Right. And it's really just what you said, Terrain. It's I love that analogy of the removing the hood of victimhood, and everything is a biopsychosocial piece. There's the psychosocial, what happened in your life, right? And then how you react because of what happened in your life. But then there's that your unique biology piece, which is the foundation of all of it. You can look at two people, let's use the exact same similar situation they were both in, happened. They may both react differently to moving on from it because of how they're wired, what their unique biology, their unique physiology piece is. Example, one of the biomarkers that we look at is the GAD1 gene, glutamic acid decarboxylase. This allows us to convert a stimulant neurotransmitter called glutamate to a calming neurotransmitter called GABA. If we have an error in that coding for that gene, we don't get to that calming piece. Those two people are going to react very differently to the same situation that happened to them in their life. Guaranteed. One's going to stay in it and just keep on playing it out, and this is my story. The other's going to say, that happened, wasn't good, don't want it to happen again. How am I going to move on from it?
And that could be traced down to biology, right?
Correct. Yeah, we actually measure that gene. And this is where somebody could go, wow, that's why I can't get away from it. I stay in these things. I'm never like, I look at my friends that are like, just relax, let it go. You're like, wish I could. I can't. I keep on in my head playing out that scenario and staying in it, hence the victimhood.
So what is so if that's the case, then what can we do as a person to change that, or what tools are available to change it if it's on a biological level?
Sure. So starting with, we have to find out where the issues are, right? So we do that, we get that information. Then from there, we look at the biochemical pathways and say, what do we need to do to optimize what we've got to work with? No two people are the same. No two people's treatment's going to be the same either. It's really personalized. It is to that, what we've talked about forever, that eventually these healthcare would become personalized. That's exactly what we're talking about. Then beyond that, once we've optimized, first phase is person's like, wow, my body's operating differently. I'm thinking differently. I'm reacting to things differently. Oftentimes this happens with young kids that I work with. I'm like, okay, we're beyond this right now. You need to react differently to what mom and dad just said. You know what happens most of the time, Terrain? They start laughing because they know I just called them out in a very, like, I get you. I was a kid too way. But we've made the changes and I've seen symptomatically the changes in you. So now we've got to change what our habits have been and what we've been able to get away with and created those habits. So we got to start showing up differently. You know why? Because your life is going to be so much better. You are going to become anything you want to become, and you're going to have the ability to do that. Now we might have to make it happen.
That journey you just described for the person to make it happen, how difficult is it for them to do so?
It's not really difficult terrain because we're working with you through the whole process from the beginning of, okay, let's get the lab samples to, okay, here's what we've identified, to where we spend a lot of time with people. We both know what's happening. You are totally understanding why you've been wired the way you've been. And now how we're going to make the changes. And then we're working with you through that process with regular appointments along the way and seeing your life take on all new shape. It makes you want to continue because you're seeing this is better. I'm going to wind up in a much better place in my life. And it's possible. This is the value of this science. This is why I get so passionate about it and excited about it, because it can change your life for the better. We need to not just talk about it and write scientific papers, which that stuff needs to happen. But we don't have to stay there. We have to move beyond the science papers and say, let's start putting it into the hands of people where they can change their lives for the better. That's when we're really doing the work we're supposed to be doing.
I look at like the different pillars of health when you have it, right? You have like mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, right?
Yep.
And I look at the struggles that so many people have, and the pillar of mental health has done tremendous strides over the
Right.
last number of years, right? I think
Right.
a lot of people probably pinpointed to COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
jump, right?
Yeah.
Big jump. Physical, I think that was always there because people understood that, right? Let me be more active,
Yep.
walk
Yep.
with my kids, go to the gym, whatever the case is.
Right.
But when it comes to some of the ones that you mentioned, I wonder then, because change for many people in general is hard or scary. Let's use
Yep.
a different word, scary,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the unknown is
That's it.
scary,
That's it.
right? How do you bridge what they currently know, which could be chaos,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And bridge it to what they don't know, which could be the happiness, but maybe they can't visualize it and maybe they can't see it because they spent so many years unable to even focus on it.
Sure. Sure. I mean, oftentimes you say change really happens when the pain has become great enough. So, in saying to somebody, we know exactly if we decide, you know what, this is great information, I really like it, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I can tell you exactly what tomorrow is going to look like for you. I can tell you exactly what next week's going to look like next month, because if you don't change anything, you're going to keep showing up the exact same way. I can tell you because of what we've just discovered within your biomarkers, what needs to be done to optimize it. Then you start to say all those things. I'm not feeling that same way. If I'm not feeling that same way, I'm not acting out that same way, your life changes for the better. All the things that you've looked at other people's lives and said, I wish that could be me, with envy, even with jealousy of someone else's life, you have those same opportunities. That's an equalizer.
And then that saying that I'm too old to change doesn't apply anymore.
No, no, not at all. We've had patients from 2 years old to literally 98 years old and can't wait to have ones older than that, even. It's everybody. It's everybody.
So let me ask you then. So for this now, and for all the people that you're going to be helping and all the people you will help in the future, um, what is the initial process then for everyone to
Sure.
get involved in this?
Sure. So we work with people literally all over the world, every continent. We drop ship the lab kits to you unless you want to come to our physical offices in Atlanta, Georgia, in Jupiter, Florida. We drop ship to you wherever you are. You do the labs, everything is explained. You're talking with the staff in our office, everything's explained. Here's how we do the samples. Here's, how to, before you do the samples, what not to eat, those kind of things. So where, no alcohol, no heavy exercise, things that are going to change your normal physiology. We give you all that prep information, really simple. The genetic part is a buccal swab, cheek swab. The neurotransmitter part, the brain chemicals, we're looking at urine samples. We may be looking at saliva samples, depends on what we're looking at. If we need to do blood, we order blood. Whatever it is we're doing, drop ship to you. You do that at home. Really simple. You send it back to our labs. We get a report back about 7 to 10 days, rather the lab results about 7 to 10 days later. We create what we call a biomarker evaluation, going over each and every one of those biomarkers that we looked at, 85 different biomarkers, what they mean. And then beyond that, in understanding to where you really have a grasp on what's going on with you. And then better is, okay, here's our plan for you. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to move through it in phases. First phase, we're going to do this. Second phase, we're going to do this. Third phase, we're going to do this. And we work with you through that process. It's that simple.
I think that is fantastic work because it brings happiness to my heart hearing that there's different ways for people to help themselves,
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
we need all the help that we can get. Like, I think we shared this the first time we spoke, and I'm looking back on my life and I'm thinking, you know what? If there's certain things in my life that was available today back then, even though it was only 15, 20 years ago, I probably would have been better off. But then when you look at it, would I have been ready to accept
Right. Right.
that type of way, right? And I wonder how many people struggle with that, where they're like, okay, Evelyn, what you're saying is nice. Well, it sounds really good. Train. Yeah, I can understand what you're saying, but I don't know if I'm ready yet. And I think that is a good place to be because it's usually a place of curiosity. Oh, that sounds
Right.
interesting. But
Right.
maybe I don't know, right? When it comes to behavioral issues, then we identify that there's different ways for you to resolve it.
Mhm.
Um, is there a way to maybe understand which one would be more helpful to the person initially before we get them on the full path?
Absolutely. What we do is we even offer a 15-minute, no cost complimentary consultation with myself or one of our clinicians. And let me hear what's going on with you, uniquely you. Let me tell you, with your circumstances, what's going to be the best route. Should we just start here and then grow from there? What should we be doing to help you in our first step of making a difference? Obviously, it struck a nerve, you're interested, it makes sense to you. Now, let's hear the nuances of your life and what would be the best way to start moving. And then there's always the lifestyle things that you can be doing on your own, let's just start with sleep. I can't tell you the amount of people with behavioral health and wellness issues that started with, if I remember back, my sleeping was horrible when all this really started to come to a head. Because in our society, we almost look at sleep like it's um, you know, an unnecessary add-on. It is vital for survival. We have to sleep to exist, to live. And when that starts interrupting, that's a really big indicator in your health that we need to take a deeper dive and see what's going on. The obvious, like eating foods that has real nutritional value for you. Everything in your body needs to be fed with real nutrition. When you eat fruits and vegetables, you're getting vitamins, you're getting minerals, you're getting cofactors. All of these things are what make up every single biochemical pathway. It may be within your unique DNA. We even look at this and say, would something like intermittent fasting be good for you? Or would it not? It doesn't mean that it's good for everybody. It depends on the way you're made up, the way you're wired. But all of those things are, what we call lifestyle, which really you can do so much with lifestyle. Exercise every day. Of course, you should be moving your body every day. But we look at it like, yeah, I know that. I know that. I checked that box. But are you doing it? It's more than do you know it, right?
I'm surprised how many people sacrifice sleep
It's
in their life, right? Like I know someone that, there's that joke, right? I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, yeah, forever.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right? There's people that work, and it always seems to be like, actually, let me take a step back. I'm surprised how many people sacrifice parts of their life for work. So, for example, people sacrifice sleep, right?
Yep.
They'll say that, well, I only need 3 to 4 hours. Well, you can get away with that maybe in your teens, 20s. But as you get older, the research is very clear when it comes to the amount of
Yep.
sleep that you need, right, per
Yep.
person.
Yep.
And then you'll have people who would fill their day with so many activities. It could be
Yep.
outside of work, it could be work as well.
Yep.
And then let's say 4 days later, they sleep for the entire day.
Yeah.
Right? And then right after that, they'll go back to sleeping 3 to 4 hours. I'm like, how does your body adapt to that, right? Like, what do you think is preventing people from consistently showing care about their health?
There's this false narrative, I'll call it, Terrain, that like you're a grinder, you're a guy who's going after it, you're a hustler, all these good things about you because you don't sleep. Nothing could be further than the truth because your brain will not be effective. If you don't have a brain that is this organ that allows you to think in your life is going to be nothing, right? So we've created this false narrative that if you don't sleep, you're really making it happen. Not true. Not true. And it's like, as I said, usually when you go back and you start saying, like, when did this start? When did that start? And the person really starts thinking, they're like, you know what? as you're asking me these questions, really, I was only sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night before I really started to feel these crashes. I can say in my own personal story, what started me down this road. I'm 65 now. At 46, I had two TIAs, mini strokes, transient ischemic attack. People like, you? I'm like, yeah, I slept 2 to 3 hours a night. Why? Did I have every reason in the book of why that's how yeah, you're a single parent, you go on and on and on. I could validate those reasons all day long and be dead, right? My daughter already had one parent, me, her father was deceased. I'm going to leave the most important person in the world to me without any parents because I've got to work, 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 and sleep 2 to 3 hours a night as a result of all that work I have to do. Forget it. It doesn't make sense. That was the beginning of my downfall in my health. Eventually, I had those too many strokes as a result.
Validation to me, for a lot of people, is their protection. They'll
Yeah.
validate so many things, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on that, on the use of
Yeah.
validation for everything?
Right. It would be like, you don't understand my story. I get your story. I hear everything you're telling me. What I'm telling you is you're going to become really sick and then try to get out of where you are. I'm telling you, this is important. The validation part is we all have our stories. We all have our reasons. And like I said, yeah, you could go down the list and say, you have to, you have to, you have to. You got to start changing your life. What are the have tos that are negotiable and non negotiable?
So, Evelyn, as we close, I'm going to give you three wishes, just like last time. Okay.
Okay.
And these are three things you can wish for because I love that you mentioned it. What are three things you wish people knew about validation of, let's say, bad behavior and why?
Okay, great. What I wish people knew about validation of bad behavior is one, we now have the technology to be able to look at that literally under a microscope to say, this is where it stems from. More beautiful part is we can change that. We are here. The science is here today. And shame on us if we continue to tell our own narrative rather than it can be changed. What on the face of this earth could be more empowering than it can change for the better?